It's Friday, July 8th. All the Queen's horses and all the Queen's men can't fix this. We start here.
But them's the breaks.
In a stunning fall from power, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announces he'll resign.
When they decide to sharpen the knives, everyone gets them out.
It only took 24 hours to become a no-go for Bojo, so what's next for a country in chaos? In an attempt to come home sooner, Brittney Griner pleads guilty in Russia.
The guilty plea doesn't actually mean anything other than procedurally it allows the whole process to move forward.
For other American prisoners there wondering how this will affect them, we'll talk to the brother of Paul Whelan. And Elizabeth Holmes said he threw her under the bus, well now he's got even more guilty verdicts than she does.
The biggest difference is that he didn't take the stand.
The fall of Theranos is complete, and so is the trial of its president. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. It's hard to know in a given moment what will actually strip a leader of power. Pressure builds in mysterious ways. Well, for much of this year, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was embroiled in a scandal about parties and get-togethers held at 10 Downing Street, while the rest of the country was being told to stay on lockdown.
This is the first time in the history of our country that a Prime Minister has been found to be in breach of the law. And then he lied repeatedly to the public about it.
Members of his own party were furious and tried to remove him from power. They failed.
I can announce that the Parliamentary Party does have confidence.
And yet recently, a different scandal emerged. This time, a scandal about a political minister with a history of sexual harassment allegations being rehired by Boris Johnson.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to trivialise what happened.
Within just a few days, that scandal has now forced Boris Johnson, in one of the most important jobs on earth, to tender his resignation. Let's take you to London this morning. ABC senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell is standing by. Ian, the last time we checked on this, a couple of cabinet members had stepped down in protest. They were upset. Since then, the whole government's collapsed. Like, what has happened here?
Yeah, exactly. It's like staring at the Hoover Dam and seeing a couple of drips coming forward, and next minute you look back, there is water coming everywhere, and the whole thing is crumbling apart. I mean, they say a week is a long time in politics. Well, for Boris Johnson, it really was a little over 48 hours.
I welcome the Prime Minister's public acknowledgement last night that matters could have been handled better in who he appointed and what was said about what he knew when.
So, step one, you've talked about what the scandal was that finally triggered this, and of course there were other scandals in the past, and the pressure was building. Boris Johnson's opinion ratings were super low. Was the resignation of two of the most highest profile cabinet figures, Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak, who is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, is really the second most important position in government.
I have concluded that the problem starts at the top, and I believe that is not going to change.
And that was a bit of a shock that they went. And, of course, then immediately all eyes are on the rest of the team. To start off with, it was a trickle, but that trickle rapidly turned into a flood.
Awful behaviour, unacceptable in any walk of life. It's there for all to see, but he ignores it.
It got to the point that, within the space of Boris Johnson addressing one parliamentary committee for probably about 3 hours, another dozen or so ministers and aides had resigned.
Anyone quitting now, after defending all that, hasn't got a shred of integrity. Mr. Speaker, isn't this the first recorded case of the sinking ships fleeing the rat?
By the end of it, we were up to more than 50 ministers, government aides, had all decided to hand in, and pretty much for the same reason, because of Boris Johnson's judgment, because of his unfamiliarity with the truth, and that he had brought disrepute to his office.
Yeah, unfamiliarity with the truth is a very polite way of saying dishonesty. That's really what a lot of these ministers were accusing him of. And these are from his own party, Ian, right? So what was the political calculus for them here?
Yeah, Brad, look, anyone who saw the House of Cards series, the original House of Cards series was actually made here in Britain. And it was about the Conservative Party. It is the most ruthless cutthroat political party. And when they decide to sharpen the knives, everyone gets them out. And by the time you know it, you've been mortally wounded. Boris was insisting, just 24 hours earlier that he definitely wasn't going. He had business to do. And apparently in a lot of the private meetings that took place between senior cabinet ministers where they went to him and said, you know what, Boris, it's time to go. But they were expecting some contrition for everything that happened. And that's not what they heard. They heard the same kind of bullish overconfidence that he exudes in public, the kind of thing that's managed to get him through up until this point, but he became irresistible. Then, of course, the writing's on the wall, and he decided to do, at long last, the honourable thing.
What happens next then, Ian? Because this is not quite I resign effective immediately or at noon tomorrow. He's saying I'll resign when there's a successor put in place. How long will that take? And, can you really be the leader of a country when you're saying, I've been bad, I'm on my way out?
Yes, although interestingly, if you look at what he actually said on the steps of Downing Street, and I was stood about 15 yards away from him, he didn't say I've done anything bad.
I know that there will be many people who are relieved, and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed.
There was no apology. There was no remorse. And that angered people.
And I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world. But them's the breaks.
What angered people even more is exactly what you just said, is that he won't be going immediately. What he said was, hey, I'll stay on until you elect that new leader. Now, that is unusual. And now, again, we're going to see the way that the Conservative Party operates. Everyone who has been friends and united up until that key moment yesterday when Boris Johnson came out will now be bitterly divided into opposing camps. There will be briefing, counter-briefing, lots of backstabbing, but it's going to be great political drama.
I was going to say, you even had people sort of climbing over themselves to be promoted in the last 48 hours so that then they could resign from a higher position. A lot of political cards being played here, but what that leaves you with is one of the more important democracies and economies on the planet currently without an effective political leader in place. Ian Pannell, there in London. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brad.
In the last few years, several Americans have been arrested in Russia. The accusation from their families has been that they're essentially being used as pawns, as hostages, innocents held by Vladimir Putin as he tries to extract prisoners and concessions from the U.S. Most of these people are folks you might have never heard of. That does not describe Brittney Griner.
Griner gets free and throws it down! WNBA star Brittney Griner is still in Russia after being detained since February.
The 6'9" WNBA star, one of the few women on the planet who can dunk a basketball, was arrested in a Russian airport for possession of marijuana, which in Russia is punishable by up to 10 years in a prison labor camp. And so yesterday, after taking a look at her options, Brittney Griner entered a Russian courtroom, and perhaps the most famous American prisoner outside of America pleaded guilty.
But I had no intention on breaking any Russian law. I was in a rush packing, and the cartridges accidentally ended up in my bag.
It is still unclear what this will mean for her in the near term. Her family is hoping she'll be let off with a lesser sentence, or maybe even sent back to the U.S. in a prisoner's swap. But other prisoners have been hoping for the same thing for years. We've got the brother of one of them joining us right now. David Whelan is the twin brother of Paul Whelan. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Paul Whelan is a U.S. Marine who has been trapped in Russia for more than 3 years. David, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
First of all, can I just ask you about this Brittney Griner news? What was your reaction to see that guilty plea in a Russian courtroom?
Not at all surprised. Ever since Paul's arrest back in December 2018, I've been watching Russian news, read it every morning, and there's no way that an American would have been acquitted in any case. And so the guilty plea doesn't actually mean anything other than procedurally it allows the whole process to move forward so that she can get her sentence, she can get her conviction, and the U.S. government can start to deal with the Russian government to bring her home.
I was going to say, when you speak to lawyers and to experts, and at this point you've spoken to several, is there calculus there in just saying, let's just tell them we're guilty. Let's just move forward with this, please.
Yes, I'm a layperson. I mean, so I only see what's in the media, but it certainly is. It's a 99 or 99.99% conviction rate, even for Russians. And if the Americans that are over there are used for concessions from the U.S. government, then absolutely they would be convicted. So it's a gamble, or it's a personal choice. Paul didn't plead guilty, but we didn't bother to appeal because we knew it would be fruitless.
Mm. Yeah, let's talk about your brother's case, because if a couple of marijuana vape cartridges of marijuana are worth 10 years in a Russian prison, your brother Paul was accused of something far more serious. Can you just walk me through his charges and I guess sort of how you learned about them in the moment?
For sure, and I will say to start that there's no reason to think that any of the charges for Brittney Griner or for Paul Whelan are in fact worth anything.
I am innocent of the one and only charge against me, a crime that never occurred.
Paul went over to help a fellow Marine who was getting married to a Russian woman at the end of December, and he was going to help the wedding party get around Russia because he had been to Moscow a few times before as a tourist. He doesn't speak Russian. And one of the friends that he had made in Russia visited him the night of the wedding, right before the wedding happened, and gave Paul a USB, just a USB stick, and said that they were photos from a previous trip that they'd been on to another part of Russia. And as soon as he was given the USB stick and put it in his pocket, his door was opened by the FSB and he was arrested, and that was it, end of December.
Is there a translator so I can understand what's happening in this court? Can you translate what he's saying, please?
We are wondering where Paul is. The groom is anxious because, of course, Paul hasn't shown up. No one knows where he's gone to. And I find out, good old web search on the internet, that an American has been arrested for espionage in Russia, and it turns out to be my twin brother.
Mr. President, we cannot keep America great unless we aggressively protect and defend American citizens wherever they are in the world. Please tweet your intentions.
Wow, and the fact that the FSB comes out moments after this thing is given screams like sting job, right? So
total entrapment, yep.
And since we mentioned that he's denied all these charges, the CIA on their part has said, like, we would not have reached out, like he was not our guy here. Why do you think he was arrested? Like, why him? And why was he the guy here?
I think it was a target of opportunity. He knew a person, the person who gave him the flash drive was a member of one of the state security services. I think he was a border guard or something like that. And according to Paul's lawyer, it was a way for him to get a promotion. So he just coined my brother into that. Paul had given.
Hey, I've got this guy coming. Hey, why don't you give him this USB drive? We'll take an American into custody.
Right.
Wow. So I mean, what has it been like just these last few months, even, to watch your brother stay in Russia while another prisoner, another U.S. Marine, Trevor Reed, was sent back in a prisoner swap? What has it been like to watch that play out?
Well, obviously mixed feelings. You're thrilled for Trevor Reed, and I would be thrilled for Brittney Griner if she was able to go home too, and separately from whether Paul gets to go home or not.
The United States got me out, but they left him there. I can't describe to you how painful that feeling is.
It's a devastating call to have to make to our parents, for them to have to make, because they're the only ones who can speak to Paul. To tell him he was left behind once, and maybe we might have to have that conversation a second time.
What did Paul say on that phone call?
He was very angry and very upset. I do not know who had made the representation to him, but someone in the U.S. government had somehow contacted him and made a representation that he might be coming home with Trevor Reed.
When I found out that it was an exchange that was happening, that they had probably exchanged Paul Whelan as well, and I expected him to be coming home with me, and he didn't.
He said, "Why was I left behind?" I was thrilled for Trevor to go home, but it's very difficult, and I'm struck by the fairness of Americans. I'm an immigrant. I've just moved to America a few months ago, and
from Canada, right?
Right, and I'm struck by the fairness. There's this real feeling, well, Paul's been there longer, he should come home first. But each of these cases is distinct, and each of them has different requirements, and so the resources that the U.S. government brings to bear on each case is going to be different, and it may mean that Brittney Griner's case, she's likely to get a much shorter sentence than Paul's 16 years. Her guilty plea may, in fact, be a tactical advantage in that they do give her a lighter sentence or consider her crime less onerous, or because she is a known quantity in Russia, there may be some other political reasons for her to be released earlier. She could absolutely come home earlier, and I would be thrilled for her, like I said, but it's still hard because Paul's case is a separate case.
But like you said, fairness. Is it fair if she, like the Griner family got a call from the Bidens? I think your sister said, like, we haven't gotten a call from the Bidens. Does it feel like you're being treated fairly by the government if obviously the Russian government is not outside of your control, but are you being treated fairly by the American government?
I think so now, yes.
Okay.
The challenge we had was really for the first 2 years, 2019 to 2021, until the Biden administration came into being, we had radio silence. We had a president who wouldn't speak Paul's name. We had a Secretary of State who wouldn't talk about Paul's case.
We've made clear to the Russians our expectation that we will learn more about the charges, come to understand what it is he's been accused of, and if the detention is not appropriate, we will demand his immediate return.
We weren't aware of anybody actually going to talk to the Russians about Paul. So since January or February 2021, we've had a huge change.
I made it clear to President Putin that we'll continue to raise issues of fundamental human rights.
President Biden has specifically spoken about wanting to bring Paul home, being worried about Paul's case, not walking away from Paul, all that good stuff.
And I raised the case of two wrongfully imprisoned American citizens, Paul Whelan and Trevor Reed.
The phone calls with the president are a funny issue. We were asked to make more noise by somebody in the State Department because it was felt that there was not enough awareness or concern by certain agencies within the U.S. government, not the public.
They asked you to make more noise?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah.
Why do you have to make the noise? It's your brother in prison. Like, nothing. You guys didn't do anything wrong.
Right. It was a very unfortunate request for them to make, and I think we ended up not making the sort of noise that they expected because we mostly pointed back at them and say, why would you ask a family to have to take on this responsibility? I don't think that a phone call from the president is going to make any significant difference. I am confident that he is aware of Paul's case. I think he is a good and kind person, and he will make the decision to bring Paul home when there's an opportunity to do so. But the thing that is missing right now is the U.S. doesn't have a concession that the Russians want.
I see. Right. That the U.S. has essentially traded back the prisoners they traded for Trevor Reed.
Right.
What else are you gonna do at this point besides change policy? And they're not going to change policies.
Well, I mean, they could be more creative. Right now, the Russian government appears to be asking for one or two people. And the American government is responding by saying, we won't give you one or two people, or at least that's what I understand. It ignores the fact that the Russians also want diplomatic properties that were taken away from them by the Obama administration in Maryland and New York and San Francisco. It ignores all of the other sanctions and impacts that the U.S. government has taken against the Russian state. I would hope that the U.S. government would look deep to find out what that concession is that they could make and to make it.
But here's my question, and it's a difficult question, is if your brother had the notoriety and the fame of a Brittney Griner, would they get more creative? Does the administration end up playing favorites simply because of the public profile?
Oh, no, I don't think so at all.
Okay.
If I would say anything, and I'm a pretty skeptical kind of guy, I think that the U.S. government plays very fairly with all of us. But the reality is that in each of these situations, each of these cases, particularly when you get away from Russia to Venezuela, to China, to Saudi Arabia, other countries holding Americans, the resources that they have, the concessions that they can potentially make are even fewer than they might have with Russia.
Yeah, and I should say, as to whether the Biden administration would consider giving up something other than prisoners to bring someone like Paul Whelan back home safely, we reached out to the Justice Department. They declined to comment on this. As for what you were told by the State Department about making more noise, no word from State after we asked them for comment overnight. David Whelan, twin brother of Paul Whelan, good luck, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I know that we made so many mistakes on this front, but we were trying to take this forward, and at that time thought that we were doing the right thing.
Elizabeth Holmes said the downfall of Theranos wasn't her fault, it was her business partners. That's why her mega blood testing company had failed, and why its incredible claims of using just a drop of blood for accurate, reliable tests in your local drugstore just didn't hold muster. The jury did not buy her excuse, and earlier this year convicted her of fraud. Well, of course, that business partner then turned around and said, none of this was my fault, it was Elizabeth Holmes, the guilty one. But yesterday, a different jury rejected his story as well, and convicted Sunny Balwani in one of the biggest medical fraud cases in recent history. Nobody has covered this story and these trials as closely as ABC's Rebecca Jarvis, host of the hit podcast The Dropout. And Rebecca, actually, since we'd last spoken, this is now a hit series on Hulu as well, so I should be plugging that. How significant was this verdict yesterday?
Well, it's really interesting, Brad. Thanks for the plug, by the way. It's really interesting when you look at the difference in outcomes of these two trials. In the case of Sunny Balwani, he has been convicted of 12 counts, all the counts of fraud against him. But in the case of Elizabeth Holmes, she was only convicted of 4 and was charged with the same issues.
It's a fraud that not only defrauded investors of nearly $1 billion, but that also put patients in harm's way.
The nurse called me back and she said, I am so sorry, that's not good. There could be a tumor growing somewhere. I will never forget that day.
Both of them were accused of defrauding both patients and investors with their blood testing technology, with claims that they lied to investors as well as to patients about the capacity of Theranos blood tests. Well, in the case of Sunny Balwani, a jury has now decided that, yes, there was conspiracy to defraud both groups.
I don't believe the actions intended to hurt patients. That's the one hurdle I could not get past on that.
Whereas in the case of Elizabeth Holmes, jurors decided that they could only convict her on the counts involving investors, and some of those counts were even dropped because the jury couldn't come to a conclusion.
I was going to say, so I was going to ask if this means they were conspiring together, or if these two different juries are saying these are really two different sets of crimes here.
Brad, originally, Sunny Balwani and Elizabeth Holmes were charged together as co-conspirators. They were supposed to be tried together as well. Instead, their trials were severed, and they were severed because of these claims Elizabeth Holmes made that she was abused by Sunny Balwani. Now, these are claims that he has firmly denied. They did not come up at his trial, but for her, during her 7 days of testimony, they were a big portion of what she talked about. In his case, he did not take the stand. He faced the identical case from prosecutors. The government brought the exact same witnesses to the stand to testify against him. The biggest difference is that he didn't take the stand to say, I didn't do this, or to raise his own objections to the claims against him. And it's ironic, Brad, if you look at these two cases, the pointing of the fingers at each other, because when I spoke to Jeff Cooper-Smith, the lead attorney for Sunny Balwani years ago, immediately after the charges were brought against the two.
Does he feel in any way that he was duped by Elizabeth Holmes?
No, that's not what is going on here.
Back then, the word was, nope, she didn't dupe Sunny Balwani. They were in this together. This was a business failure, and they both were mistaken. But when you look at how both of their attorneys pursued the trials once they were severed, it was very much a, well, he made the mistakes. He made the errors. He made me do it, or she did.
Wait, he told you like they were in on this together, and now he's saying, oh, no, actually, the whole defense was like, actually, she was the masterminds here. He didn't know what was going on.
Exactly. And there were a lot of emails that the court read and that were read aloud. For example, there was this one at Sunny's trial where they presented a text message from Sunny to Elizabeth, and it read, I am responsible for everything at Theranos. Well, that was in the context of a lot of other text messages, but it very likely made a big difference with jurors at this trial. And when you think about these two people who are both charged with the identical crimes, and you think about a jury who is supposed to know nothing about any of their backstory, and they're shown these things, like in Elizabeth Holmes' case, pictures of her so much younger than him, supposedly having to rely on him for his expertise, you can imagine where the jury may have found that presentation more sympathetic than Sunny Balwani, who had experience, maybe should have known better, and how the outcome could be different as a result.
We've made it possible to run comprehensive laboratory tests from a tiny sample.
There's very likely jail time coming, Brad, but there's also these appeals, and then there's also what it says for the broader business world. And one of the very important lines that has drawn in the sand is that you can't lie.
Yeah, and so much about this is defrauding investors, right? Defrauding people that you legally owe money and promises to. However, you also always think of the broader general public here and the patients that were counting on this stuff to work as well. End of these trials, but perhaps not the story. Rebecca Jarvis, host of The Dropout. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Brad.
And one last thing. Did the devil just go down to Georgia?
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal.
Something bad has happened, but it's unclear who did it. So here's the story. For the last 40 years, in a rural spot up near the North Carolina state line, there's been this kind of daunting monument, this 20-foot-high set of stones that looks like, I don't know, a knockoff Stonehenge. For years, no one knew who even commissioned it, and to add to the mystery, there are all these messages in different language etched into the rock. Some are about world peace, others are about guiding reproduction wisely and limiting the world population, which some people have taken as a message that this random monument is evidence of a worldwide genocidal plot. A wild theory with zero evidence. Well, enter a candidate running for governor.
We're in the Bible Belt. We do love Jesus, guns, and babies, and we're going to represent Jesus Christ, not communism.
Candace Taylor has lots of theories about how to make her state better. None of them were enough to win her the Republican primary in May. But one was that as governor, she would destroy the satanic monument known as the Georgia Guidestones.
We're going to get back to being moral in Georgia. We're going to put morality over money. I'm Candace Taylor. I'm the one you've been waiting for.
Earlier this week, someone made their way to this remote part of Georgia and blew up the monument, set off a bomb, damaged it so badly that the entire thing had to be demolished, which made some people think this must be related to Candace Taylor. She adamantly said she had nothing to do with this and would never condone anything illegal. Plus, there's been another development since her campaign.
And at this point, it is finally time to talk about rocks. And
John Oliver, you know, the comedian from HBO, he did a whole segment on Candace Taylor's obsession with this diabolical monument. And in the course of researching this segment, his team stumbled across a documentary where the identity of the monument's creator was apparently revealed.
Through it, ball of energy comes through that sucker, man.
That creator, John Oliver said, turned out to be a stone-cold racist.
But he also wrote at least 2 letters in newspapers praising David Duke. Yeah, that's David Duke.
Suddenly, you had this whole nation of viewers, including critics of Candace Taylor, saying this monument should no longer stand.
Which is the sort of thing that makes a line like guide reproduction wisely hit a little bit different now, doesn't it?
At this point, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation says they don't know who blew up this monument. They did say it was a massive device, which has now created a massive mystery and a renewed sense that nothing is set in stone. This thing that was built in 1980 was supposed to convey all this mystery. Now the mystery is all about why it's not there anymore. Start Here is produced by Kelly Therese, Jen Newman, Brenda Salinas Baker, Louis Millman, Madeline Wood, Vika Aronson, Iru Ekpanobi, and Tara Gimbel. Ariel Chester is our social media producer. Josh Cohan is our podcast manager. I'm our managing editor. Liz Alessi is the head of ABC Audio. Thanks to Lakia Brown, John Newman, and our intern, Nania McLean. Special thanks this week to Chris Berry, Luke Barr, Taylor Dunn, and Stephanie Wash. I'm Brad Milkey. See you next week.